official. It's official.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Regina Bradley, and this is Outkasted Conversations, episode number 5. I'm real excited to talk to the guest today. My homie from Indiana University, my fam, my blood fam, chosen fam, Joey French,
Hey, what's
producer
going on, man?
extraordinaire. What's happening, good sir?
Oh, everything is going great. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. I've been waiting on this conversation because I like the sound stuff. So as a producer, I know you're going to give us some really good insight about the actual production,
Oh,
especially as it deals with Outkast. So let's get this joint started. You got to answer the question that everybody else starts with. So when did you become outcasted?
I want to say sixth grade. That's when everything kind of started. Middle school. That's a weird time for everybody anyway. But just trying to fit in and just trying to figure out, who I am, what statement I'm gonna make on an everyday basis. Um, if I can remember one particular time I was outcasted, it was, you know, when you get to that point of life where, okay, now you really have to, um, what am I trying to say? When you really have to be about business, and
Hmm.
like I said, sixth grade was the year that happened. But when you're about business, that does come with responsibility too. And one of the responsibilities that does come with is speaking eloquently.
Mm.
And again, a lot of the other kids would make fun of me. Oh, he sounds like he's white. He sounds like he's, different. And which I was okay with that because I knew in my heart there is something different about me. But that's something that um, traveled all the way through middle school, all the way through high school, in and out of these studios. And that's why, I'm kind of where I'm at today, just being different, just being who I am, and being comfortable in my own skin. So if any time I was outcasted, sixth grade was when I was outcasted. And to
Word.
the kids that did outcast me out, never mind, I'm not even gonna go into that. But yeah, that was that one particular time.
Okay, dope. So, I mean, like, you're talking about finding your voice and finding, your unique perspective. And as a music producer, you know what I'm saying? The way that you actually like go into the studio, I've had the pleasure of seeing you in action many a time. Um, and I think that also speaks to this idea of being outcasted, right? Like not finding like literal words to articulate who you are, but using sound to do that. So, talk to us a little bit about your actual sound production. Like when you're thinking about a track, what comes to mind for you? What are some of the ways that you talk about kind of sustaining this uniqueness that you mentioned earlier?
Right. I think a lot of it has to do not only with just the music, but with personality and just interacting with people. If you can talk to people, if you can represent yourself in a way that people will be more receptive, then that goes a long way too. With music production, there's really no process for me. It's just I kind of go in and I just let God lead the way. Just there's really no formula to what I do, but I know for some of the people that have been in the studio with me, it can be a all day process just going through different sounds that's gonna intrigue the ear. So um, that's one of the things that I try to go into the studio with, not so much a promotion of having predetermined strategies of what I'm gonna do that day. It's just however I feel. So
Mhm.
if I'm upset, or if I'm happy, or if I'm feeling some type of way, it's usually gonna come out within the music. And again, that kind of sets me apart from different people because you have a lot of producers that may go into the studio and say, "Hey, we need a hit," but a lot of times that just happens um, out of those conversations. It happens out of just interaction with people, and we may be talking about a topic, and it's like, hey, I found some inspiration that let me go ahead and feed off that. Because a lot of times when I'm not thinking, when I'm not so much trying to figure anything out, it usually just comes out.
Okay, okay. So you talk about when you started becoming outcasted. As a music producer, you know what I'm saying? What outcast tracks really stood out for you, and what was memorable for you?
I think, ooh, Outkast. That's a hard one, but let's see. Rosa Parks. I'm gonna say Rosa Parks, and if I can choose another one, the art of storytelling.
Mm. Okay, okay. That seems to
Because
be
those tracks,
popular.
art of storytelling. And I'm about to get real deep here.
Oh, excuse
That,
me.
that had, yeah, that had more of I like the production in it, but I like the way it was arranged. The way it came in, like it just had that artistic. I'm about to paint a picture for you type of vibe. Because a
Mm.
lot of times I listen to just the instrumental. Like I can listen to it without the words, and I can visualize. Okay, from my perspective, what would I talk about in this song? If I was working with a songwriter, the perspective of okay, what do they feel from the record? And that's what that record did for me. Is like I felt it. It wasn't just something to play in the car to freestyle to. It was like I really felt okay from the intro to when the song ended, what the song was really talking about. Rosa Parks, it just had that unique bounce. I was a freshman in high school when Rosa Parks came out. That was around 98, 99. So I'm really telling my age at this point. Um, but when that came out, that was like a different bounce from what you were from everything else that you were hearing. I mean, you had DMX at the time that was pretty much that Rough Rider crooner. You had Jay-Z that was really making an imprint on the industry then. But aside from all that, you had a group like Outkast that, again, their music spoke Outkast. It just there's no really other way to put it, but Rosa Parks, it just had that different bounce to it. It made you want to dance. It made you feel good. Why they named the song Rosa Parks at the time, I didn't understand, and that was another thing, the mystery on why they even called the song Rosa Parks. That's another thing that drew me in. A lot of times people don't think about that. They just go, "Oh yeah, the song Rosa Parks is dope." But I was that nerd in the corner that was really trying to figure out, well, why would they call that song that? Is it the kind of barnyard type of Southern influence that it has? Why they called it that, or was it the fact that they mentioned everybody moved to the back of the bus? Is that why? So again, I mean, they're an amazing group. Again, I'm just excited to know that they're about to work again on their new project, and again, with being a producer, to even hopefully being able to get asked to maybe do something with Outkast, that may be cool. I may have to talk to Sleepy Brown about that. But yeah, those two records, Rosa Parks and Art of Storytelling, excuse me.
Yeah, I like Skewed on the Barbie too. But I
Mhm.
think when you're talking about like actually trying to think about what the additional meaning of the actual production means in terms of not just the lyricism. I mean, like it's so easy to get caught up in what the lyrics are saying and not really sit back and think about, well, yo, what does this particular order of sounds or why does this sample mean X, Y, and Z? Like, what is that additional layer of storytelling that is unfolding in the actual
Right.
production? You know what I'm saying? And it takes, I mean, like, it's not just, you sitting here and be like, oh, I'm gonna just put this sound together and this sound together, but literally actively participating in the way that it's constructed
Right.
is really dope.
You have
But
to you have to put yourself like in a different mindset when you listen to the actual tracks. It's like you and I, if we listen to it together, just the instrumental, we may have to be in that songwriter mindset to really understand, okay, what is it saying? And again, that's where conversations, that's where the interaction starts. Like, well, what do you feel? What do I feel?
mm,
you know. So again, a record like Art of Storytelling, I'm able to hear from my own perspective of how I would translate what this really means to me. I can hear in there how I was teased in sixth grade because I sounded like a white boy. I can hear um, influences from the second verse in the beat, talking about in most cases I was like the only black, whether it was, in the classroom, whether it was on the baseball field, sometimes in band class, you know what I'm saying? Because when you're on the when you're in the mindset to do bigger and better things, a lot of times that doesn't um, a lot of times at an early age, a lot of people don't get that. They just think, oh, he's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's what sets you apart. And so that's what that song did for me. So being in a songwriter's mindset, listening to the track, that's how you have to accept it. You have to accept it like a songwriter. Because again, it is like figuring out a puzzle. It is trying to figure out what's this intro saying, what's the first verse saying, then we're back to the hook to bring it back around. What's the second verse saying? You know, let me go a little bit deeper and tell you why I felt this way in the first verse, and then just kind of, you know, in your way out, there's some type of resolution by the time the song ends.
Yeah, I'm with you. So you're from Nap, you're from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, you know, when you were talking, I was thinking about is like you weren't even in the South when you know Outkast was really starting to drop. So like my question for you would be, how do you think, you know, the actual act of listening is impacted by where you were? You know what I'm saying? Because the way that I was listening to it and chopping it up about Outkast in 98, 99 in Albany, Georgia, might be a little different than where you were chopping it up in Nap. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think definitely it was a culture barrier as far as what Indiana hip hop versus, you know, Atlanta, Georgia, all over Georgia, what that culture might have been like when Outkast might have came out. So again, the influences are different. But I think the whole thing that stood out at the time was organized noise. You know, it wasn't just Outkast, it was organized noise. It was Sleepy Brown. It was Rico, you know, on the tracks. And that's one of the things, even in high school, I was a crate digger. You know, I was for the tomorrow people, that tastemaker that wanted to know what equipment did they use? How did they get that sound? You know, why did it make the speakers sound that type of way? So again, coming from Indiana, you had to eventually do your research. You had to, first of all, not only do that, but be a fan of their work. You know, this all starts from Playerlistic Cadillac Music. This starts from AT-Aliens. This starts from Stankonia, you know, all the way up. So again, just understanding who they are as a group, understanding the production that was behind them, because the way I felt being from Indiana, in order to understand Goody Mob, in order to understand CeeLo Green, you had to understand Outkast. But to understand Outkast, you had to understand organized noise. What influences were they using? Because Outkast, they sampled just a smidge, but
right.
A lot of it came from just natural talent, just being able to play instruments, but playing them in a different way. You know, being able to do collaborations with George Clinton, and you know, just some of the subject matter too drew you in. Because Outkast, they took it a step further. It wasn't just talking about street stuff. It wasn't just talking about being a pimp or anything like that. It was like they gave you life lessons in their music. So again, for somebody, you know, from, you know, the suburbs, middle class, you know, typically, you know, people may not understand that, but I was that kid that just wanted to know. I wanted to be educated about organized noise. I wanted to be educated about Andre 3000 and Big Boy, and just to even understand the dynamics of their partnership. You know, Big Boy, he was a lyricist, but I mean, he gave you more of that glam side. But with Andre 3000, it's like he got into your mind. It's like, you know, it's like a roller coaster going on with some of the lyrics that he gave you. But the way it was translated, that's what kind of, you know, keeps you intrigued. So.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I really think a big part of the puzzle that I really can't wait to get into with other guests as well is the role that organized noise plays. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember reading, I think it was an article in like Spin or something like that. But Big Boy was like, you know, there's no need to sample. You have to be as original as possible, because what we're talking about is original stuff. So it's like, you know, he kind of shunned, you know, that full-on heavy sampling. If anything, you know, they sampled from life experiences. Like going back to your discussion of Rosa Parks, you know what I mean? That was a particular type of incident. The idea of integration and the idea of reaching this particular type of audience. I mean, you know, when Rosa Parks was coming out, they were still trying to struggle just to get that recognition on a national scale that they were indeed, you know, for lack of a better term, authentic hip-hop. So it's like that whole idea of integrating hip-hop paralleled with the integration that the Rosa Parks track represented.
Right, exactly.
But I just, I want you to talk a little bit more about organized noise, because I feel like they need to. I mean, like, I feel like the audience needs to understand that without organized noise, you would not have a signature sound for Outkast. And the way that sound, transcends each album. I mean, like, you have Southern Playalistic, that's a particular type of sound. You have ATLians, they're really playing with this idea of this futuristic, the future space. Aquemini is, a mix of all of that, and it just really starts to dictate that Outkast is not only an experimental group, but also, they're aware of sound. So I'd like to hear more of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, as far as like the sound goes and how it plays a big impact in hip hop today, I feel like organized noise, I think the mindset that they were in wasn't to be like anybody else. I think it was more so they're not going to go into the studio and, like I mentioned before, and worry about what the trend is now. They are the trend. They're the ones that created the sound, not only for today, but for generations to come. So, again, as you mentioned before, when you go from the first album up until present day, it's like you hear a progression in sound. I mean, you hear different influences, but you really can't pinpoint where they got it from. I mean, as far as like the research, you really, really have to dig. But like I said before, just a minimum of sampling and more originality as far as being able to add live bass in your music. Because one of the things that people have to understand about organized noise and why they have an impact on groups like Outkast, Goody Mob, some of the other groups that they produce, is that they don't worry about being the superstar. They actually tap into the world of Andre 3000 and Big Boy to come up with those sounds. But I feel like they actually take time to figure out how we're going to push the envelope. They try to, I mean, they're not trying, but they definitely break barriers in their music. And again, in the industry, you get caught up, especially with hip hop being the new pop music. I'm going to go ahead and lay it on the line right now. A lot of people are concerned with, well, it's not trap, it's not feel-good music. It is feel-good music, but they don't worry about trying to fit with what Justin Bieber is doing. They don't try to fit in what Jay-Z is doing. They don't try to fit in what, again, what other people from the southern region are doing. The way Bun B stuff and UGK stuff sounded is totally different from what Outkast sounds like, and you hear that in the music. And I think the soul is definitely there in the music, and they're able to convince a lot of people that this will work. I mean, I'm pretty sure they've had meetings with L.A. Reid where it was like, L.A. might have sat there and said, I don't think this may work. This is not what's going on. But you have to remember, Outkast is an influential and respected group, and they win Grammys, so that should tell you something. That encourages my generation to go ahead and just do you. But they actually tell you how to do you. It's like, be skilled in what you're doing, but don't copy off anybody else. You make your own imprint. And it kind of goes back, again, what I was saying about my experiences in middle school. It was like, it was hard to find who I was, but at the same time, once I did, I was comfortable where I was at, and I knew how to exceed and push that envelope as well. So that went from the classroom to the band room, to the studios, and these big corporate meetings with big labels at the same time. So, again, if you didn't have people like Organized Noise to not only show you, but teach you how to do it, then, there wouldn't have been more of that influence. And again, these guys, they're coming straight out of the church. They're coming straight out of the marching bands in those black college markets and everything. And that's one of the things that you have to look at. To understand, we've talked about to understand CeeLo Green and Outkast and Goody Mob, you have to understand Organized Noise. But I think that whole black college market down there, you have to get accustomed to as well, because that plays a big part of Outkast movement as well, and Organized Noise, because you hear those influences in the music. I know I believe it was the Idlewild soundtrack, and I think it was Big Boy's song. I can't remember the title, but what was it?
Roy gonna get you. It's called Morris Brown.
Delete it. Sorry. But you heard those marching band influences, but it was translated in a different way. I mean, they actually took a live marching band from Morris Brown, recorded them in the studio, and again, another Grammy album. That was for a movie. So again, pushing those barriers is the main thing that I got from Organized Noise. That actually helps me out becoming a better producer, not a complacent producer, but a better producer. That way, I know how to reinvent myself as years to come, and just be outstanding.
Okay.
And
Oh, go ahead.
did that answer your question? I know I was kind of all over the place, but just again, I get real passionate when I talk about different things like that because I just want people to understand the mindset of when you're a producer.
No, you answered my question, but it also made me think about something else. Um, the impact of the digital era and the internet on production. You know what I'm saying? Like I know that what's his name, Lex Luger had a whole bunch of drama on his YouTube stuff because they were like, well, all he did was tap on a couple of keyboards and a computer, and now he's a producer. And you know, I mean, like in the one hand, you have the opportunity for anybody to, you know, produce, right? Put these sounds together and produce a track or whatever. But I mean, like really, the actual art of production has been impacted by technology and the internet in ways that weren't at the top of the list of concerns in the 90s and early 2000s. So what are your thoughts on the ways that the, you know, organized noise and the digital era impact what sound production in hip hop looks like today?
I mean, you can't really duplicate the original. You know, I mean, you can try and try. I mean, they can make a lot of software that can mimic the real thing, but unless it's the real thing, it's not going to translate the right way. Believe it or not, a lot of people wish that they had the skill to play a real instrument. When I started to really get heavy in making tracks, and I decided at age 17, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to be, this is how I want to take care of my family. I started at the wedge of when computer software started to make that presence into the game. So with me being a musician producer, of course, I thought using any type of software program to make music was whack at the time, just only because it's like I took years and years to like learn a skill that helped me with production. And again, it's kind of like for somebody to buy a computer and just be able to click on stuff and call themselves a producer, it was hard to accept. I think I still find a way to incorporate the two. Because again, I still have drum machines, I still have keyboards that I use. Guarantee I'm the organist at my church, so again, I can deliver on that end. But to give the modern sound of today and understand like what technology is doing to help enhance music, that's when you have to kind of put your ego aside and say, hey, let me tap into this world of software and let me see what impact it does have. So when I do incorporate the two, I may use the live instrumentation to do all my orchestral arrangements. You know, I may do all my key work on live instruments, but then I may go over here and I may do drum work on my software. I may, like I said, it's about 50-50. I just incorporate the two to see what type of sound that I can get. I mean, we're in a new age. Technology is taking over, but you have to find a way to mesh the two because there is still room for live bass. There is still room for live piano. There is still room. I mean, believe it or not, a lot of the big top 40 records that you hear on the radio, they use software, but they may hire a bass player to come in. They may hire a violinist to come in to incorporate the emotion that's needed for that track. So the way I feel about it, both worlds are great. I just think back then, it was hard to sometimes afford that big equipment. It was sometimes hard to afford that drum machine that I know would take my music to the next level. For a graduation present, my mom and dad, they bought me that motif, the one that you always saw me carrying without the case and everything. It was heavy, but it was something I really wanted, and I proved to them that, hey, I'll go ahead and shape up my grades to make sure that when I get this, I'm going to deliver as much as I can. I used it for a good, I want to say, 7 years. And then after that, I had to graduate to the next level, because once I got to a point where, having meetings with A&Rs and different things like that, and they were saying, hey, man, you should start using this software, you should start doing this. I was like, okay, by the third meeting, everybody keeps saying that, so what am I not doing right? You know what I'm saying? These records are good, but they could be better. So what do I need to do? So I put my pride to the side and said, let me take, the $75, let me buy the software, let me see what it does. And again, the whole learning curve of trying to even understand how all that works, that takes a little bit of time. But eventually when I got it, I saw the value in it, and I knew how to go over and beyond. It's like, okay, now how do I mesh these two together so I can get a different sound? I mean, I'm pretty sure organized noise, not everything is live. They have to, incorporate some of that software influence at the same time. So again, there's a need for both of them. It's just, how are you going to use it? How are you going to translate it? How are you going to tell your story with incorporating the two?
Dope. So, Joey French, I know you got daddy duties. I hear little man in the background. Tell the people how they can get in contact with you, what you got going on.
Yeah, definitely. You can reach me on Twitter at Joey French Music. You can reach me on Instagram at Joey French Music. You can reach me at Gmail at joeyfrenchmusic@gmail.com. Yeah, everything is Joey French Music, so just try to keep everything consistent. You can actually catch me on Facebook as Joseph French, and just look me up on YouTube. I have a lot of projects that I'm working on right now. One record that we have coming out by the beginning of this summer is a record called Living Room Floor, international release by the artist of Ryan McDaniel. So just be on the lookout for that. Again, just continue to work, and I have other releases that I'm not able to speak on at this point, but just be ready and just look out for me.
Appreciate you, Joey French, producer extraordinaire, and also the producer of the Outkasted Conversations intro and outro. Yes. Right. So we appreciate you, Joey French. Folks, we will holler at y'all next week. I'm Dr. Regina Bradley. This is Outkasted Conversations. We'll holler. Peace.
All right. Have a good one.